Hey, welcome to my channel where I post videos about my experience as a late diagnosed autistic human being. Yesterday I went to an event. It was a festival of some sort in my city. I don't want to say much more about it because I'm a bit paranoid and I don't want people on the internet to know where I live. But it's an event that my partner and I had been looking forward to since we moved here, but we actually only realized a couple weeks ago that it was going to be like this week. We decided kind of last minute last week to buy tickets for it. I was like, okay, I can do this. Yeah, I feel like, as I mentioned in my last video, I feel like I've regained a lot of my energy. So I was like, yeah, I can do this. It's gonna be a good exercise. It's gonna be a good way to test what I'm capable of right now, what my body can handle. I planned things so that it wouldn't be too overwhelming. I didn't put pressure on myself to stay for the whole thing. I was like, I can come home within half an hour if I feel like it. We woke up at 10 yesterday because I was like, I don't want to wake up too early because we have the whole day ahead of us and we're probably not going to stay the whole day. So there's going to be plenty of time, and waking up later will ensure that I have plenty of energy for the day, because lately I've been going to bed pretty late and waking up pretty late. I've been getting the most quality sleep in the mornings and like sleeping in and really allowing myself to do that because it feels restful. So we got up at 10, got ready, blah blah blah. I think we were ready within less than an hour because like we had showered the night before, I had washed my hair, so we were ready pretty quickly. I brought a bag with all my stuff and my sensory aids, everything I was gonna need. My partner likes to leave the house without anything, without a bag, without anything, like the bare minimum, because since he has ADHD, he's always scared of losing things, misplacing things, and it's stressful for him having to remember to look after 1,000 different things, whereas I feel most reassured when I leave the house with a bag with all my essentials in it, because I'm stressed about not having what I need when I'm outside the house. We actually took an Uber, even though it was only a 5-minute drive, because like I said in my last video, the city center is on a hill, so it's quite steep. It's quite a steep walk to get there, and I was like, if I use up all my energy walking there, what's the point? He couldn't take us as far as we wanted because all of the city center was basically like closed, like the roads were closed for the festival, but he took us as close as possible. We had anticipated and we had looked online, and basically the festival is spread across the whole city, and there are different locations with different exhibits and different events and stuff like that. And so we had decided what we wanted to see. We had a couple things we wanted to see. We went to one of those things and realized that obviously, because it's quite a popular event, there was a queue coming out of the building and well into the street, and it looked like a queue that would take an hour, and I really didn't have it in me to just stand in a queue for an hour. So I was like, all right, let's move on. And unfortunately all the exhibitions had that much queue, so we didn't do any of those. We ended up walking quite far to the other thing we wanted to attend, which is basically a whole like themed event spread across 2 different really large, like almost like warehouses, you know. We went there, it was quite a walk, and by that time I was like, we hadn't done anything yet and I was already tired and overstimulated. Oh yeah, and before that we actually went into a cafe to take a bit of a break. We hadn't done anything yet, but just the walking around the city center with all the people and they were blasting music in the streets, and it was just a lot I'm not used to that anymore in the slightest. So I had my loops, I had my headphones, I was playing music, but it wasn't really helping because for some reason every time with every step I took, the music would jump. I don't know, whatever sound was in my ears would jump. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It would be like, yeah, I don't really know how else to explain it. And so yeah, it was just a whole sensory mess. When we realized that we weren't gonna do any of the exhibits that we wanted to do in the city center because the queue was too big, we went to a cafe hoping that it would be quieter, and it was a little quieter, even though they were playing music and there was a lot of people. It was better. So we stopped for some coffee and a hot chocolate and just took a break. I listened to some music. I had a tangle. I was stimming. I'm a lot more comfortable stimming in public and wearing my headphones and stuff, not really caring what people think. I feel like getting my diagnosis really, and I'm gonna make a whole video next week, within the next couple weeks, because it's gonna be the first anniversary of my autism diagnosis, and I have a lot of things to say. But one of those things is that I've grown a lot more confident in my own skin since getting my diagnosis, and I'm very proud of being autistic, and because I don't see myself as weird anymore, I don't care if other people see me as weird. Does that make sense? Anyways, so yeah, we took a bit of a break and then we resumed, and so we walked a long way to those warehouses, if you will. We had to climb some pretty tall staircases that went over some railway tracks. There were a lot of, it was a pretty steep staircase, pretty tall. And I was like, let me see if I can get the lift because it's gonna save me some energy. And the lift was broken, and I thought, that's great for disabled people, very accessible. Welcome to France. I walked up the stairs and stuff. It was quite tiring. I'm gonna say it took a lot of my energy, and then on the way back we had to do that again. When we got to the warehouses, there was a queue again, but not as big, and we got in pretty quickly. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad inside. We got some food and sat down to eat. Like the whole time I had my loops and my headphones with music playing on and off. Then we went to the second part of this event where there were more people. I was a little bit busier, but it wasn't too bad again. Like it was manageable. By that time I had gotten used to being around people again after not leaving my house for 2 months. And like I was getting more comfortable with it, and the environment wasn't as overwhelming to me. So I was starting to enjoy it. I was feeling the fatigue though, like my feet, my legs were hurting from all this standing. I had to take regular breaks. Usually throughout the day I have to lie down because that's how I rest the most, and like I can feel it in my body that my body needs to lie down throughout the day. And obviously when you're out and about, you can't do that unless you find a bench and you're comfortable laying on it. Otherwise, like you're either standing or sitting. So I could feel that my body was starting to get really tired, but it was manageable. You know, we drank some bubble tea, we bought some stuff at the event, and then we came out of it, took another break outside, and my partner was like, I think I'm close to being done with it and going home. My partner was like, you can go home if you want, I'm gonna do a couple more things. And I didn't feel like going home on my own, I'm gonna be honest. I thought, you know, I'm too intimidated to get an Uber on my own. So I still had a bit of energy. I was like, I'm gonna keep going for a bit, do one more thing, with my partner, see how I feel, and then maybe I'll go home after. I wanted to kind of test myself, push myself a little bit. That's where, like, you know, when you look back on something that happened in the past, sometimes you're like, well, this is when I should have stopped. This is when I should have gone home or whatever. I think I should have sat at the terrace of a cafe while my partner went in. But anyway, I didn't know it at the time. So we went to this other event that was in the city center. So we walked all the way back to the city center. Don't forget, it's like very steep and stuff with all the stairs and everything. So we got to that event, which was basically, it's like in a massive tent that they put up. Again, there was quite a bit of queuing, but it went pretty fast. I think it only lasted about 15 minutes. I was still like in my bubble and stuff. We get in, and right away I'm like, I'm not gonna last long in this environment. The air was stifling. It was stiflingly hot. I don't know if they were heating up the place or if it was just all the people, because it was quite big and there were quite a few people in there, and so the air was stifling, and heat is one of my worst sensory aches. Like, I really can't tolerate the heat very much. And then as soon as I stepped in, I was blinded by the lights. So I was wearing my sunglasses outside, took them off, and then stepped in, and the lights, like, they had like, I don't know, really bright neon lights overhead that were really blinding me. And of course, like, the constant noise of people and stuff, like, it was quite overwhelming. And like, again, like, my legs were tired, my feet were tired. I told my partner I'm not gonna last very long, so let's make this quick. So we walked around the place a little bit, and I don't know how people, well, I know how people do it because most people are not autistic, and so they can tune out a lot of the sensory stuff. But I always thought, whenever I went to events like that, I always felt bad and guilty that I couldn't focus on whatever was going on, especially if it's an event like this where you're supposed to, I don't know how to say it without giving it away, but like, it's the kind of event where you're supposed to buy some stuff, you know, look at some stuff, discover new stuff, and then purchase it. And you even have opportunities to meet the creators of those things. And so I always thought, like, how can people focus in such an overwhelming environment? Like, in the past, I used to, as I mentioned in a past video, I thought when I was overstimulated, I thought it was anxiety. Now I know it's not, but at the time, because I didn't know what overstimulation was and I didn't have a reason to believe that that was what I was dealing with, I thought I was anxious. And so I always thought, like, don't people get anxious in these environments? Like, I don't get it. How can they be so relaxed and be able to focus on the things in front of their eyes and actually make decisions and stuff? Because I'm completely unable to do that. And in the past, I would have felt really bad about it. I would have felt like I was missing out, like I was, broken, like, a lot of the time. And now I know I'm overstimulated, and so I'm not in good conditions for my brain to be able to focus and make decisions. Because honestly, when you have a lot of things to look at, it's also a form of overstimulation for me. I think I heard somewhere that autistic brains take in 40% more, or was it up to 70%? I don't remember the number, okay? But autistic brains take in a lot more information than neurotypical brains. And so that's why we have slow processing or delayed processing and stuff. It's not that we're slow or that we're less intelligent than regular people, is that our brains need to process a lot more information. And so in those moments, I'm like, there is so much going on, including like visually, that even if it's the best event, even if it's like my special interest or like things I'm passionate about, I'll still be completely overwhelmed and not be able to enjoy it. in the moment, and then I'll feel some regret afterwards, even though it's not my fault. And so yeah, like I was always so confused by how people were able to focus on what's going on in these events and like make decisions and buy things and stuff. And my partner was like, he has the same issues, being ADHD, and so he did buy some stuff, but he was like, I don't think about it. Like I don't think about it too much. I just grab something that is grabbing my attention and I just buy it, and I don't think about it too much, because otherwise like he gets like decision paralysis and whatnot. Like, so yeah, it was funny. And I would probably do the same if I had the money. Obviously I didn't purchase anything because I don't have the money for it, but I would probably do the same as him if I had the money to buy things. But the way I approached it was, if something grabbed my attention, like an art style or something like that, I would take a picture of it and then, you know, later on look it up online and decide if I want to get it or whatever. That's how I function in these moments. Like I'm not in a position to be able to make decisions while I'm at the event and like purchase things while I'm at the event. So yeah, so we looked around for a bit. I don't think we stayed more than like 10 minutes in that place because it was so overwhelming, and like my partner wanted to explore some more because he was like, you know, we paid for the tickets and this festival is only once a year. Like he really wanted to make the most of it as much as possible. And so I was like, I'll leave you to it and I'll step outside and I'll wait for you outside, because I was like in such a state of sensory overload at this point. And so I went to the nearest exit, and I'm sure that's something that happens with a lot of autistic people. I'm sure you'll relate, but when you're in sensory overload, when you're overwhelmed for one reason or another, you tend to get a little confused, a little lost, and suddenly your brain is not braining correctly. At least that's my experience. There have been lots of situations like that in my life where I was overwhelmed. Suddenly, like all the resources in my brain were being used for survival, and there wasn't much left to focus on practical stuff. It's something I mentioned last year when I went to Sweden. In my vlog, I was talking about how I didn't know how to make the lift work, even though had I been in a state of calm and regulation, I wouldn't have had an issue figuring it out. But because I was overwhelmed, I couldn't figure it out. And that's something that's happened quite a lot in my life, where I was, you know, not in my comfort zone, obviously, like out and about in public places and stuff, and suddenly I'm so overwhelmed that my brain is not braining. In those situations, unfortunately, people, like random people, tend to treat me like I'm dumb, and especially in France. That's something I've mostly experienced in France. I lived in France for the first 20 years of my life, then lived abroad for 7 years, and I came back to France a few months ago. Yeah, I was quickly reminded of the way French people treat people who are overwhelmed like they are dumb. It's also happened to me in other countries, but mostly in France, which is where I spent most of my life, let's be honest. And so I went to the exit, and basically there was the exit sign at the top, or was it on one of the doors? I can't even remember. There was a door on the right and there was a door on the left, like a single door on the left and a double door on the right, something like that. And in my sensory overload, overwhelmed state, I was like, went to the only door that was open, which was on the left, and there was a security guy, and so I went to exit through that door. He spoke in a very French way, so if you've been to France, you'll know that French people tend to be quite rude and quite rough around the edges, and they don't really care about you. They don't really, like, they're always pissed off, basically. It's always your fault, whatever you're doing. You're always made to feel like crap. So I went to exit through that door, and he was like, no, that's not the way out, that's the way in, like it's the other door. And he was like very like, you know, like speaking in a very like preachy voice, is that the right word? Like not just indicating to me the way out, he was like there was a lot of judgment in his voice basically. So I go to the door on the right, and it's a double door and it's closed, and there's a guy right outside. So I was like, I don't know what to do about this. So I go to push the right side of the door, and the guy is like, no, you've got to open the left door, that's the right door. Again, with his really annoying, like, judgmental voice, like, you're a bit stupid, aren't you? So I was pretty annoyed by the time I came out, and like I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what I was doing. You know, it was a whole mess. There were some concrete blocks outside, so I sat on one of those, and then a young woman sat next to me and started smoking. Another characteristic of France is people smoke a lot. I was a smoker before. From the ages of 14 to 18, I was smoking cigarettes. This woman sits down, starts smoking, and so I'm like looking around to see if there's another bench available, because I don't want to sit next to someone who's literally smoking in my face when I'm already in sensory overload. So I'm looking to see if there's another bench available. I spot one. I'm about to get up, and then she's like, I hope I'm not bothering you by smoking. And I did a very neurodivergent thing, which is to tell the truth, even though I think in most situations people don't expect to hear the truth. So I was like, yeah, it is bothering me, but I'm gonna move to another bench, because I was already on the way there, you know, I was already on the move. So I was like, I might as well. And it just came right out. Like, if I had been masking more, I probably would have said something like, no, it's all good and stuff. But yeah, I was like, yeah, it's bothering me, but I'll move to a different bench. I didn't even look her in the face. I don't even know what she responded and how she reacted. I just went to the other bench. I was quite annoyed at this point by people, and being reminded of how French people are, feeling the sting of ableism, which I'm obviously a lot more sensitive to now that I came back to France, because back when I lived there 7 years ago, I didn't know I was autistic. I didn't even know what ableism was. So now I'm a lot more sensitive to like discrimination and stuff, and I saw the ableism everywhere, you know, like the fact that a lot of stuff wasn't accessible because the lifts weren't working, and like the way the guy treated me, like, you know, it's that classic behavior of someone who doesn't even consider that the person he's talking to might have a disability or a difference of some kind. That mindset of like, we're all the same, and we're all supposed to function the same way, and if you don't, then it's on you and you're broken, you know. And that's how I was made to feel my whole life living in France, which left some marks. It's definitely left some trauma. Like there was one time that a security guy, why is it always a security guy? I don't know. A security guy outside a museum, like when I was maybe 9 years old, like straight up said, I asked my mom if I was dumb or something. Why? Why do you have to do that? There were a couple other times, at least, that I can think of in my life where someone was like giving me instructions, and because I was overwhelmed and like with the delayed processing and stuff, and also with the difficulty reading social cues and stuff and body language and stuff, I didn't get it right away. Again, I was made to feel dumb for it. And that hurts, you know, that fucking hurts. Because the other person doesn't realize how much damage they're doing, but every single one of these remarks scrapes away at your self-confidence, especially when you're a freaking child. Like, I remember one time I was in secondary school. We were out on a school trip, whatever. We were supposed to cross the road and our teacher was on the other side of the road. You know, I was waiting for her to say, it's okay, you can cross the road and stuff. I was looking at her and she started gesturing, and I didn't understand the gestures. I don't remember what it was she was doing, but it didn't instantly click like it would have if I wasn't autistic, you know? And so I was just standing there looking at her, and she was like, I don't know, she was like, she probably said something like, are you sleeping or whatever. Like, it was always something like making me feel bad, making me feel stupid, you know? There's very much this mindset of like, when a child is struggling at school, you're not gonna try to help them. You're gonna like rub salt in the wound and like make them feel even worse about it. A couple years ago as an adult, like while my partner and I were traveling across Europe, we were in, was it Romania? Basically, we were in a small town, and then next to the town was a kind of a hill or a small mountain. And at the top there was a sign, kind of like the sign at Hollywood, with the name of the city. And so you could take a walk in that mountain, go all the way to the top and stuff. And so we did that. And on the way down, we took I don't remember the word, I'll put it in the subtitles. And so we went into one of those, and like it was quite small, it was quite narrow inside. There were maybe less than 10 people. Again, I don't remember exactly what happened, but the guy basically gave me instructions, I think because I was the closest to the door. Or maybe he gave instructions to everybody, I don't remember. But basically, I failed to understand the instructions in the moment, you know, what with, you know, delayed processing, difficulties with verbal processing, and like feeling overwhelmed because I was surrounded by strangers and stuff. All of that combined made it so that I didn't understand his instructions, or I froze or something. And again, like he treated me like I was stupid. Like I didn't understand anything, you know, like he was talking to me like I was a child or something. Every time something like that happens, it's so triggering for me. Even though I know I'm not stupid, and I know these people just don't understand, they're ignorant, they're not very nice and stuff, it still hurts because it brings me back to, again, it's all about trauma, isn't it? It always brings me back to when I was a child and I had moments like that. And it did, because at the time I didn't have the knowledge about myself that I have now. I couldn't tell myself like it's on them, not on me. Like I internalized all of that shame, that humiliation, because that's what it is at the end of the day. You're being humiliated in front of other people and made to feel like you're broken. And I internalized that when I was younger, and I believed it. And that is one of the reasons why I have such low self-esteem now. So obviously it's always gonna hurt, even though I can now I can intellectualize it and be like, no, there's nothing to feel bad about, like I did nothing wrong and stuff. It still hurts, you know? So I guess that's why I wanted to make a video about yesterday, was because that's what stood out the most to me, honestly. And so then my partner came out of the tent thingy maybe 10 minutes later, and we walked home, because the way back is not as exhausting, because obviously like you're going downhill. We stopped to go to a shop where you buy stuff for your home, basically. It actually started as a joke. My partner said, let's go into that shop, and because I can't tell 90% of the time when he's making a joke, even though I've known him for 9 years, I still get fooled. Most of the time I take things literally when he's making jokes, and so he has to tell me like, no, it's a joke. And I was like, you know what, I know it's a joke, but actually it might be a good idea, because I was just desperate to get away from the noise and stuff. And so we stepped in, and it was nice and quiet in there. There was nobody, obviously, because everyone was at the festival. We got a couple things we needed, and then walked home. And I think we were gone for a total of 4 hours from the moment we stepped out of the house in the morning and the moment we came back in the afternoon. I think we were gone from around 10:30 to around 2:30, which in the grand scheme of things is not that long, but it felt like we were gone all day. And I was so exhausted and my legs hurt so much. Basically did nothing for the rest of that day. We just watched movies and got pizza in the evening because we were so exhausted. So exhausted. And like, I feel better now that I got a good night's sleep, but I felt it yesterday. I was like, maybe I overdid it a little bit because I'm still in burnout recovery. I'm not completely recovered, and I'm testing the waters, you know, to see kind of like what I'm capable of at this point. And I'm like, okay, that was a lot. I'll take it easy in the next few days to recover. But yeah, it was nice to get out of the house, to do something different for the first time in months. It was not nice to be around so many people though, and to get sensory overload. But yeah, I'm proud of myself for even making it there. Even when I thought I wasn't gonna be able to do any of the stuff, I was still proud of myself for going there. Whereas in the past, I would have felt bad for not being able to do any of the stuff. So that's great. And also, like, I felt, like I said, I felt a lot more confident. I felt a lot more comfortable in my own skin. Even though I was wearing my headphones and I had my tangle in my hand and I was stimming, you know, by bouncing my leg or swaying, or you know, when I'm standing and I'm waiting in line for something, I'm always doing stuff with my body, like I don't know, like twisting or like moving, shaking my legs. Like I gotta move when I'm waiting in line for something. And I didn't feel self-conscious about it. I was just being myself. I was not completely unmasked, obviously, but like a lot more unmasked than I would have been in the past. And I felt comfortable about it. I was proud of being who I am, you know? And I didn't care what people thought. Also, like, I had a freaking blank face all day long. I didn't force facial expressions or anything like that. And it felt so comfortable. And I didn't care that people might think that I was rude or cold, or I had my blank face on, my resting face on, and it was so comfortable. So yeah, I'm gonna end this video now. Thanks for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!